Welcome to Sustainable Sailing. It's the end of Tuesday 24th of May 2022 and let's see how we've got on with building a battery box for our electric yacht. First of all, today this entire area of the bilge, top of the keel, sides and so on has all been trimmed, sanded, bit of grinding, horrible mess, but that's all clean and ready to be acetoned prior to epoxy. This is the position of the bottom row of batteries. That positive will go through a watertight gland there and then the fuse. I checked, the ABYC says 7 inches to the first, maximum to the first fuse. This will be about well, a little less than that. The fuse can be inside the motor compartment and readily accessible. Positive out to there, that negative to this positive, that negative to this positive, that negative to this positive, and then that positive all the way back. The sides here are going to be coated in epoxy, as will the side of the hull, and then I will pour some slightly thickened epoxy all the way down that gap, so essentially that gets glued to the side. Do that on both sides. These divisions here are not going to be glassed in. Once they've finished holding the sides apart, they can come out. I can put glass fibre tape down the joint to the keel on both sides, coat the top of the keel with some epoxy and paint. That back end of the battery box is ready to be epoxied and glued in, and then all these divisions will be coated in epoxy, but they were made so that they can drop in quite easily and just be held with screws, and then I can put in these sort of wedges to hold these batteries so they don't move. This layer will then have an 18mm ply on top of it. To make that easy, I will attach battens along the lengths and across both sides of these cross pieces, and the top will drill into those. I'm going to make that top so that it has cutouts for each of the cables running within it, so that those cables will be below the top of the of that sheet of ply, but there isn't enough clearance to have them clear of it, and that will be in 4 sections, so that we could lift out an individual larger battery and get to the smaller one underneath it. All 4 of these have a Bluetooth BMS in them, so we can check on the individual state. We can know which one has got a problem from that, so we wouldn't have to just lift everything out. But the idea is that these partitions could just be permanently removed if we built our own battery back or something like that in the future, so that could be a good custom fit. I'll lift the top batteries into rough place so we can see how they look. And there we have the top layer of batteries in. You can see that the terminal connectors are slightly different on these, so that'll be the positive out to the fuse, and then it's very short runs on these. I think I'm supposed to have the same length cables between the 2 battery banks, so I guess the cable will have to loop around a little bit, and then the floor will go above that. It's quite a tight fit. I will put some struts between the batteries, or on above the joint between the batteries, underneath the floor, which will stop the cables going in the wrong place and just give a little bit of strengthening to the 18mm floor as it bridges across that. So once I've got all the bottom glassed in place and the floor fitted, then that will allow me to fit the sides here, one each side, and do the end here properly. Once I've got those in place, they will have battens along them which the floor itself will rest on. You might notice that that battery there is slightly kinked up a bit because the keel space narrows slightly at the back there. However, as you can see here, that one is under the steps. It's actually underneath the wet locker. And yes, the wet locker is going to be very well waterproofed with at least 2 layers to keep anything from going into or onto the battery bank. Okay, quite pleased with that progress today. Time to put a temporary floor in to make it a little bit safer for me to get in and out. And I've just got time for some unboxing before I cook my dinner. The key item today didn't arrive in a box, which was the sheet of 8x4 ply, 80mm thick, thanks to Jewson's, and more than half of that's already been used in the boxing in of the battery box. This is one from Accu, and very relieved to find this because it had got lost somewhere in the boatyard. Nobody knew who had signed for it, but this is something that had to be produced, and so custom has taken quite a long time, and it's really small, but they are countersunk washers with a flat bottom, and we're going to use those for the M5 bolts, countersunk bolts that will hold down the floor. So we have a smooth surface coming up here that the countersink sits in, which we will then have little cutouts in our flooring material. We're not announcing what that's going to be yet, for each of those, so that when you walk on it, actually it'll be pretty smooth. This one also arrived yesterday, in fact, and lost somewhere in the boatyard, not too badly. I'm very grateful for Gary in Unit 10, who receives parcels for me all the time and very gracious about it. So, lots and lots of cardboard, and this is what I hoped it was, which is the consumer unit that will go between the isolation transformer and the multi-plus. So it is one designed for, approved for showers, so is supposed to be more waterproof, and so that has a RCD and a 63 amp circuit breaker, which is what Victron recommend. That's going to mean we're fully protected in every beautiful way that we ought to be from the shore power. I did open this one earlier just because I am incurably lazy. Inline fuse holder with 5 amp fuses. It's from ASAP Marine and ASAP Supplies, I think. That's the fuses for it, 5 amp fuses. That's for the windlass control box. 2 mega fuses. I've got the holders already, and those are for one for the motor, one for the multi-plus. I don't know, does anybody know the difference between, whether there's a quality difference between a mega fuse and an ANL fuse, which we're using in some other places. And then this one is from Furno Riddle and Company, and should be a whole load of stuff for our 48 volt wiring. Ooh, lots and lots and lots of boxes, and a little bit of cardboard. 2 ANL fuse holders. Those are for the DC to DC converter and for the solar MPPT. This is one of the smaller switches that we've got. So this one is simple on off, and that it's a BEP mini switch, which is for the that's for the MPPT, and another one for the DC to DC. They're much larger than we need in terms of rating, but we wanted to have similar looking switches. So those are mini ones which match the heavy duty ones for the motor and the MPPT and the batteries. Oh, a bit of cardboard. Cardboard. This is the larger BEP switch. We'd already got 2, but we realised we needed 4. So that's what the 4? 2 battery banks, and the M Multi-Plus and the motor all have one of these, which are rated to 600 amps. So that's 2 of those. That's the other small switch, and a third small switch, so that we can be ready to add. I think we're going to use that for the windlass, perhaps. Can't remember off the top of my head. And then some cable. So we've got some 35mm. That's to go from the buzz bars to the MPPT controller, which we're going to fit in the aft heads. No shower in there, so it's not a very wet place. And longer length of 16mm, which is to go from the main buzz bar to the DC to DC converter. Lots of toys to open. We're expecting, and 2 ANL fuses as we needed. So that's all very exciting, and lots more parcels coming in coming days, so that we can do the obvious next phase of an electric yacht, which will be to fit the solar panels. Not just solar panels coming, but a really exciting way of building an arch for them. Stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share and comment. Thanks very much. Bye.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, give us a thumbs up.